And I thought that the evil would do best on this island down here because it already has some elements to it that I feel are kind of on the evil side. Like you have this cracked kind of ground right here. It's already kind of dead. There's this like wasteland right here, this kind of shadowed area. I feel like overall that's really the best kind of place to put the evil. It's next to some biomes that already are kind of eerie or kind of barren, and so I think evil would fit best there. Hey everybody. Tangle Vissel and Moodles of Oodles, glad that you're here. All right, so I'm going to put the evil in here. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to probably go with maybe like a Mordor approach, kind of a Lord of the Rings kind of thing, volcanoes, kind of a dark, kind of very cliche, kind of overdone. But, you know, at the same time, it's pretty popular, so I'll go with that. We'll go with some more original ones for the more ethereal types, but I think a volcano kind of makes the most sense. I'll go with like a centerpiece, and I think the volcano is a good centerpiece. I might thin it up a little bit, make it a little bit taller, so it's like kind of an imposing thing. Like it's evil. Evil can sometimes seem overwhelming, and so making it a little bit bigger kind of makes sense, right? It's larger, it's more intimidating. So I think I'll place it here, and I'm going to place it up here at the top because it's also overlapping the coastlines. And I kind of feel that it overlaps this coastline, this stamp does, and that creates this sense of depth. So if you're ever wondering, like, how is it that I create more depth? It's always overlapping. Notice how these mountains that I'm looking at right here, they seem to have a little more depth to them because a whole bunch of them are kind of lined up together, and they kind of overlap each other. That's really, really important for creating depth, okay? So on top of having a volcano, I noticed that Prox in here was mentioning constant volcanic eruptions, right? That makes total sense, right? So because there's a volcano there, so let's maybe have it be kind of a craggy, dangerous kind of sharp, edgy, kind of always moving, kind of hostile environment. So throwing in these kind of sharper looking karsts right here might work well. And what I'll do is I'll place them first around the base of the mountain or the base of the volcano, and I feel like that's a good location to have it because it's a volcano would come from perhaps like a mountain chain. One of those mountains is a volcanic one, and so we'll have that, and then we'll maybe have some of those karsts kind of connect close to this other mountain range right here. So we'll kind of blend them together, so it kind of looks it blends into it. And I'll add a couple more of them here, and then we'll add some larger ones, maybe creating a natural wall, kind of like in the way that Mordor is kind of set up in Lord of the Rings. And so this kind of natural border will be kind of helpful. That way it's like, you know, not just anyone can just stumble into the heart of the evil land, right? It's some place that requires like, oh, maybe an airship, maybe you have to have a mount of some kind. Maybe you need to have a spell to transport yourself there, you know, whatever it might be. And so what I want to do is I want to create a series of like natural defenses. So let's say that, well, I'll go ahead and put a little line right here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. But what I want to do is I want to create like a series of like walls made out of karsts like this. And then that way you have to go through these series of walls to get from land over to the volcano. And so I'll probably use the karsts to kind of make that. I'll use some smaller ones. So I'll take these smaller karsts like this, and I'll make a series of walls. And what this will do is it will work as like natural defenses. Okay, and then we have these series of openings, and I'll kind of continue adding a couple more in here. There we go. All right, that looks good. And I think on top of that, what might also be good to kind of show that there's activity, things are moving, it's unstable, is to add in some pits, or I think they're called craters. These right here will work well to kind of show, and then maybe we can even add like a point of interest that we'll put later inside one of these pits. So I'm going to just kind of scroll through all of them. I think this is the biggest one, so I'll put that one there. And then maybe we'll put a smaller one like right here, and then we'll put one more, maybe put it right here. nestle it in, make it a little bit smaller. Actually, I think I'll flip them. We'll put this one over here, this one here. That looks good, and I'll scale it down a little bit. I still don't like it. Let's I just don't want them all in a perfect row. Let's maybe add a third one right here like that. And you notice that they're all overlapping, right? That these sharp karsts are jagged and they're overlapping. Oh, hey, first time Chaver, by the way, Flavorist. Sorry I missed you there. So glad that you're here. Appreciate you. I'm glad you like the videos. So we're creating this kind of harsh environment. That's kind of the whole point. I want it to look like it's harsh, it's dangerous. A couple other things to do is maybe add some jagged kind of structures off on the side to make it look even more inhospitable. Like it's evil. So if I put these maybe at the base here, I want them to be facing the right way. So I'll scroll through with the mouse scroll wheel. If you hold down the Alt key, or I'm using a PC keyboard. I'm not sure what it is for a Mac, but you can hold down that Alt key and use your mouse scroll wheel, and you'll be able to scroll through things that are in a set. I do believe when 2.0 comes out, there might not be stamp sets anymore. I don't really remember. I'll have to check, but I'm just adding these kind of sharp edges right here to the coastline should help to make it again seem inhospitable. It's exactly what I'm kind of going for here. So I'll kind of place these all jagged. Let's make sure I get the right ones. That one looks good right there, and then another one right here like this. There we go. So we have this very inhospitable landscape. It might not be a bad idea to also throw in some karsts that are overlapping the front of the craters. So maybe some smaller ones like this, just right in front of it. Maybe some behind it. I think that looks good. And then some really tiny ones in here. Remember, one of the big tricks for making something look natural, even though this is a fantasy biome, to make it look more natural, you can create a diversity in sizes, right? You don't want all your mountains and your karsts and your hills to all be the exact same size. They're going to vary. So randomize your stamp sizes, especially for natural terrain or for terrain, because that's exactly what terrain is like, right? It varies in its size. And so that'll be helpful. You don't all want the karsts to be exactly the same. It's just not going to work out very well. So I think that evil part is done. I did want to create another more evil section over here. Just right up here. And I think what I'll do is I'll just create some more craters over here. Like what I wanted to have, and I haven't done the lore yet, but something I was thinking about is that I wanted to have like maybe where a fallen star took place. And I wanted to explain why this island kind of went the way of evil. Maybe there's like a fallen star or is hit by a bunch of evil stars. And by evil, I mean maybe they carry like maybe like a corrupt essence that is sentient, or maybe it's like a space disease that shows up on the planet and it turns people into like evil creatures. I don't really know yet, but I did want to have this lore in this section here. I will mention that I don't generally do lore until later because it's just so much easier to do the lore once you've already have the landscape there. Otherwise, you'll have to like come up with the lore fresh without some kind of visual to help you out. So some people might be wondering like, why aren't you doing the lore? It's because I saved the lore for after making the landscape, because I'll come up with all this cool lore later. And then I have some landscape to work with. That's just generally how I do it. But other people might be better at coming up with the ideas first and then applying the stamps. That just doesn't work for me. I generally make it first and then make the lore. I just find it a lot easier for me personally, right? It's easier to come up with something when you have a visual to work with. I use the same logic when I'm doing theater of mind. When I'll make a scene and then describe it to my players instead of trying to write it all in my head. Okay, sorry about that. Went on a rant there. I'm going to go ahead and save. Got 140 changes, and we'll go ahead and continue those craters. Oopsie, looks like it wouldn't save for a second there. Might be offline. Whenever you run across this problem of not saving, usually just wait a moment and then press save again. So usually it's just, there's like either an internet timeout or it just didn't do the connection right. But usually after doing it a couple times, it usually works. There you go. See, it saved that time. Great. Okay. All right, so let's continue adding those craters. Like I said, I do want some kind of fallen star or something like that to be involved. I'll put them into 3s here. And then I think I'll also use that cracked ground texture that I used over here. That cracked texture might work well in here as well, I think. So let's go down here. I think, I'm not sure what texture this is. I can't really see it. I'll go into the catalog and try to find it anyway. Cool trick. If you want to find all the alpha textures, just type in alpha. Oh, wait, it didn't work that time. That's funny. It usually works. All right. So if you can't see and you can't figure out what's what, you can always go over to this little hamburger menu up here and show names. And then you can see the name of things. So this is cracked brown right here. I can change the scale a little bit. I'm going to go in, and I don't want to paint the mountain parts. Remember, parchment stamps have clipping masks, so if I paint this cracked ground, it will also show up, on top of the mountain as well. So what I'll do is just where there is the negative space, and the negative space means where there is no stamp. Wherever there's a negative space, I'll just add that kind of cracked ground texture. There we go. Now I kind of have that nice cracked ground texture in there, and I'll do the same thing to this one right here. Just want to show that the ground is dead. It's falling apart. It's eroding a lot. It's dry. Just whatever. And I think I'll also do some more interesting things as well. Unlike this one over here, where I'm going to put like a POI inside of here, like a tower or an evil fortress or whatever. I think on this one, I'll actually put karsts in the center of it, just to give it a more unique shape. And then I'll also put a couple around the edge as well. Don't forget to overlap. And that way, this is at least a little bit different. These land masses these biomes are far enough away from each other that I do want to have some uniqueness. I don't want them all to be exactly the same, even though they're in relatively the same island. There we go. I think that looks good. I'm not sure if I want to paint a color on top of it. I could use like a reddish or a pinkish color, like this dark red land could work. I could try painting like the whole thing at 100% just to kind of see what it looks like. And then I could also just go bring the brightness down quite a bit to around 20, 30%. And then just kind of go, oopsie, that's the softness, my mistake. Opacity, there we go. I'm prone to make mistakes. Okay, and then I'm just going to go over it like this with just a couple strokes. And I can maybe get this nice red color. I might have to go in again with... I probably will have to go in again with that cracked ground because I'll go over it with too many strokes. So I'll go back in with that cracked ground and put it in there. There we go. And then what I might want to consider doing is taking all these karsts, select all of those. Do I have some over here as well? Oh yeah, perfect. Okay. I'll go ahead and maybe use an object shadow. And maybe use a gray color. I'm not sure. Maybe go with a darker color. I'll bring the intensity up. Yeah, I think gray and purple, or gray and pink kind of go well together. I'll bump the intensity up just a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, gray and purple kind of come together fairly well, I think, or pink. So then I'll go in and use that same color here. And just, whenever you're trying to blend biomes, just bring the opacity down and slowly let it blend into the other biome. So you see I put some purple here. I have it set to a lower opacity. And so I'll just kind of slowly let it blend into there. So whenever you're doing blending, it's about dropping the opacity and just doing a couple strokes and then kind of bleeding them into each other. What you're trying to do is not create a perfect line that distinguishes the two biome textures, right? So that dark gray texture and that pinkish texture, to make sure that they're not, make sure they're kind of bleeding, like melting into each other, instead of a distinct line where there's black, gray, and then there's pink. So it's all about kind of diffusing the two textures and blending them into each other. And that can be kind of difficult to do, but there's all kinds of cool tricks for doing that. Sometime next month, we'll do a whole stream on how to blend biomes, and I'll teach you all the cool tips and tricks on how to do that. I think what I'll also do is, I think I'll continue adding just a little bit more of that cracked ground texture. I do really like that, so I'll kind of really push it in much as I can here, and then over here. It really dried out over here. It really got blocked out, so I'll really put it in deep here. There we go. So we have that nice cracked ground that goes in there. I'm going to quickly save it. Okay. And then after the save, we'll go ahead and I'll show you some cool tricks that I kind of do with these more fantastical biomes, is I'll usually use some kind of light source. And light sources can really dramatically make your map kind of pop out a little bit. So I'm going to take something not from the Parchment World style. Instead, I'll go to the Fantasy Battle Map style, and I'll use some of the light sources there. And what might be cool is to actually make a light source that comes from the volcano, because right now it doesn't. The only thing that really makes this kind of pop out is just the contrasting gray and kind of the pinkish color, right? But if I throw in like a light source, I put it like just right here, right where the mountain is. I'll use an orange one, and then I'll use a yellow one like this, and then just put it right on top of it, and then maybe bring the opacity down a little bit like this. And if I take a step back, you'll see how much of a dramatic change that it actually has. Adding in a light source, one of the big tricks to having a little bit more dimension, making something look a little more 3D, is light and shadow. So adding in a little bit of light right there can really make a area kind of shine, make it look more interesting. So now we have that here. So I might want to consider, like, I could even add in like a flame of some kind. Like I think in the fantasy, or I think it's under fire, my mistake. There should be like this hellfire right here. If you don't want to use a light source because you don't like the light source, you can always move those and then do the flame instead. You can go and put a flame like right there like that if you want to. It's up to you. If you prefer, I prefer the light source over the flame. But I think that just gives it a little bit extra touch to it. I think I'll even make this orange one just a little bit bigger just to give it